Yes.
Okay. Judge Travis, can you hear us? We cannot hear you.
Not hear you. I will go.
I can hear you now.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so to catch everybody up, I think we had you on mute and we had ourselves on mute as well. So we're doing introductions. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Amy Marie Travis. I'm a judge down in Jackson Superior Court in Brownstown, Indiana. Hope everybody's having a great day.
Thank you. I'll also just point out that Corey Martin is online from the Indiana Chief of Police Association, Commissioner Arnold from the Department of Correction, and Superintendent of State Police and Secretary of Public Safety, Anthony Scott, is also online in the meeting. The minutes were distributed to members in advance of the meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, or clarifications to the September 5th minutes? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Move to approve.
Second.
All right. As we have some members participating virtually, statute requires a roll call vote. John, will you call vote?
Amy Carozos,
Aye.
Amy Marie Travis, sorry, Judge Amy Marie Travis,
Aye.
Anthony Scott, Superintendent, State Police,
Aye.
Bernice Corley,
Aye.
Chris Naylor,
Yes.
Corey Martin, Judge Philhampton,
Yes.
Doug Metzinger,
Aye.
Judge Reese,
Aye.
Chief Pruitt,
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Yes.
Aye.
and
All right. The minutes from the September 5th meeting have been approved.
I think we missed.
oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Stidham.
I'm not voting member.
Yeah, and Mr. Clark is not. Yes, that's
Okay. Now the minutes.
Now they have approved.
All right, moving on to the executive director's report. The third quarter division report was sent out in advance of the meeting and is included in the binders. I will highlight a few items and happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. First, I'd like to introduce Maddie Knight, who joined us in October as our Director of Research. Maddie brings an extensive background in working at the intersection of criminal justice and mental health. Some of you may remember her from her work at the Division of Mental Health and Addiction and at this SA. And so we are very happy that she has joined us and is already helping work to integrate a lot of our data across all of our divisions. The state budget agency is working to unify all of our granting agencies to one single grant management platform. And the UNA platform will replace our legacy IntelliGrants system. The Institute, along with the Department of Homeland Security, will be the first adopters of this new software, and we're currently in the discovery phase. We don't have a timeline for rollout yet, although we are targeting likely the third quarter of 2026 for that transition. And then finally, we continue to feel the impact of the extended closure of the federal government. We anticipate further delays on the release of grants and awards from federal agencies, and we'll continue to communicate updates with our stakeholders as we receive information, and we have not received anything at this point. So we're still in a holding pattern. Any questions?
Is Maddie here with us today?
Yes, Maddie, do you want to stand?
Yeah.
Maddie's also helping us, along with John, work to, and we'll get into this later, into some of our goals, work to strengthen our involvement in the planning and coordination of the justice system. So we're taking a new approach to how we work with senior stakeholders. So budget update. Cheryl Espina, our Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer is here.
Good morning. Report, it reflects the financial position
of ICG's active grants as of November 30th. And then we have one grant ending this month under the Victim Services Division, which is the 2022 staff violence against women grant. Is the 109,799.79 and a fractions of that will pay the personnel costs this December. And then the remaining 92,000 will pay for food guarantees obligations. Overall, our grants are in good standing, and then our agency continues to strive to adhere to the rules and regulation of the state and federal government. Do you have any questions?
It's a question in translation. Does that mean that we are de-obligating and sending back 109 and one? No.
So what happened is this $109,000 as a balance in November, but now actually, yes, on Wednesday, we spent $6,000 for our payroll. And then the remaining $92,000 we actually spent, but no, we obligated for, to pay for some guarantees.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And because of your question, Ed, I think maybe the last meeting or around sending money back, we're going to make that very clear when we are sending money back to the federal government. That's one of our goals for to not like that. And so that is something that we will be in the financial reports moving forward, just pointing that out. Because we're not going to be doing it, so we won't have to point it out, but if we do, we will be pointing it out. All right, any other questions? Okay. Moving right along, Professor Stewin, would you like to present the victim services funding recommendations?
Yes, Director. The first item for us would be consideration of the subcommittee's November 2025 meeting minutes, which are included in your materials. I would note one item that is not of substance, but when I printed out the agenda, it showed a editing mark in Roman numeral 4, review of SAVAF, between the words 24 and parenthetical, but in the materials in our binder, that does not appear. So just, I mentioned it because if other folks notice it as well, like if that screams as if I'm in exam grading mode, yeah.
I appreciate that. We'll make sure that the official minutes are taken from the what staff has put in the binder, not what I'm probably the one who made that mark and then sent it out. So.
And with that, I will move that we, the board adopt the subcommittee's meeting minutes as provided in the materials in this meeting.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right, call the roll.
See if I can do this without forgetting something else. Amy Carrozos,
Aye.
Judge Amy Marie Travis,
Aye.
Superintendent Anthony Scott,
Aye.
Bernice Corley,
Aye.
Executive Director Chris Naylor,
Yes.
Corey Martin, Judge Dolahanty,
Yes.
Executive Director Huntsinger,
Aye.
Judge Reese,
Aye.
Chief Pruitt.
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold,
Yes.
Professor Stewin,
Yes,
Chief Deputy Lori Torres.
Yes.
Is it?
Okay. Moving on to sexual assault services program.
thank you. We have two funding streams to address. The first is, as Director indicated, Sexual Assault Services Program, SASP. Would note for the board's edification that staff from CJI met with the representatives of the Indiana Coalition to End Sexual Assault to discuss not only these funding recommendations, but the funding recommendations for SAVAF, which we'll take up next, and included their buy-in, if you will, on these recommendations. And they are the recommendations conveyed by staff to the subcommittee, and in turn from the subcommittee to the board, were approved, if you will, by the ICESA. So the first one, sexual assault services program, there were 20 applicants for the 2026 cycle. 9 of those applicants were new. A little over $1.4 million was available, and a little over $1.9 million was requested. These are federal funds that support crisis centers, things like 24-hour crisis lines, et cetera. And those are priorities in terms of reviewing and making recommendations about these grants. Although the subcommittee took the grant applications in 3 components, as we've done before, unless there's objection today, what I would propose is we will take all 3 components, that is, those programs or agencies recommended to receive funding in the amounts they requested and reflected in the spreadsheet. Those programs that are recommended to receive some funding, but less than they may have requested, may have been a mathematical error, and specific unallowable expense, what have you. And then the third component will be programs where the recommendation from the subcommittee to the board is that they not receive funding. So of those 20, in that first component, there are 12 programs that are recommended to receive funding in the amounts they requested. Those specific amounts are reflected in the spreadsheet. In those that are recommended to receive some funding, but not the amount they requested, there are 2 of those. And then, as I mentioned, there are 6 programs where the recommendation is that they not receive any funding. I would note that for me, at least, sometimes deciding to just not award any grants is always a little bit different than deciding an amount to award. Again, there are 6. I would note that those 6, if my notes are correct, my memory is correct, all of those 6 are new programs. Some of them don't yet have rape crisis centers, and frankly, in some senses, just don't qualify. But with that, in order to open the floor for discussion or questions, I'll move that the board approve the subcommittee's recommendations of awards in the amounts or no awards as reflected in the spreadsheet in our material.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Any discussion, or is this the second, and then any discussion?
Second, Travis.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll call the roll.
And remember, this is about to accept all the recommendations of the subcommittee, whether they be for full funding, reduced funding, or denial of funding. Amy Groves. Judge Travis.
Aye, thank you.
Superintendent Scott.
Aye.
Executive Director Corley.
Aye.
Executive Director Naylor.
Yes.
Executive Director Corey Martin. Judge Dolhan.
Yes.
Chairman Doug Musser.
Yes.
Judge Reese.
Aye.
Chief Pruitt.
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold.
Yes.
Dr. Stewart.
Yes,
Chief Deputy Lori Torres. Motion carries.
Great. Thank you. We'll move along to the Sexual Assault Victims Assistance Fund grants.
the lovely acronym for this one, SAVAF, SAVAF. This is for 2026 cycle. There were 24 applications submitted for the 2026-2027 grant cycle. Roughly or approximately 9.3 million was available for possible award. A little over 10 million was requested within these 24 applications. This state program was created to establish and maintain rape crisis centers, enhance services provided by existing rape crisis centers, and to develop, implement, and expand trauma-informed sexual assault services. Again, this is with input from the ICESA. The materials, the spreadsheets reflect the way the subcommittee took these applications. Again, we'll treat them all as one group unless there's an objection from any member of the board. Of those 24 applications, there are 8 that the subcommittee is recommending receive awards in the amounts that they requested. There are 12 programs that are recommended to receive some award, but not necessarily in the amounts they request, less than they requested, frankly, again, for various reasons reflected in the spreadsheet. And there are 4 programs that the recommendation is they receive no funding. I would note a couple of things about this one before we move into discussion and or vote, and that is the four that are recommended to not receive funding are new applicants to this funding stream and don't meet various requirements or criteria, what have you. And of the 9.3 million that was available, if the board adopts the recommendations of the subcommittee, it will be awarding approximately $7.4 million, leaving approximately 1.9 million in reserve for what we staff, CGI more accurately, anticipates as a second opportunity in 2026 to offset what is anticipated to be reduction in VOCA funding. So my way of thinking of it, that 1.9 is kind of being held in reserve for possible implications from other funding streams. That's why if we adopt the recommendations, 7.4 out of that 9.3 is being recommended for award. And with that, I'll move that the board adopt the subcommittee's recommendations to award grants in the specific amounts reflected in the spreadsheet in our material.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thanks. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Amy Grozos. Judge, Travis.
Did you say Judge Travis?
Yes.
Then aye.
Superintendent Scott.
Aye.
Executive Director Corley.
Aye.
Executive Director Naylor.
Yes.
Executive Director Martin. Judge Stolhante.
Yes.
Chairman Hunsinger.
Aye.
Judge Reese.
Aye.
Chief Pruitt.
Aye.
Commissioner Arnold.
Yes.
Professor Stewart.
Yes,
Chief Deputy Torres.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you. So it is my understanding that this board over the past few years has discussed the continuous reduction in the federal funding from the Victims of Crime Act. But we wanted to make sure that the current board members and everybody were aware of the challenges that we're going to have. So through no cost extensions, managing carryover funds, we've fortunately been able to minimize much of the impact of the reduction in funds from the federal government. In January, we'll release a funding opportunity for VOCA, and this year we are expecting a 40% reduction in the total amount that we are available to award grantees, and that is over the previous summer. So Ricky Cato, who's our Assistant Director of Victim Services Division, is here to explain the complexities of these funds and the proactive approach that we are taking to try to minimize this impact as much as possible.
So we'll just talk a little bit about VOCA, where it comes from, the history, what we're doing, and also a little bit about our federal work that we've received. Thank you. So a little bit about the history of VOCA. VOCA was established in 1984 by Congress in order to provide state and local programs to assist victims of crime. So VOCA allows all victims of crime, or majority of victims of crime, to be provided through these services. It is funded through fines, penalties, forfeited bail bonds, deferred prosecution, non-prosecution agreements, and assessments that are paid by federal criminals or criminal offenders. And then the allocation, we are a state, so we receive state allocation. With that, there are other allocations that are provided or carve outs. So while it may look a little bit bigger, there are other allocations that are required before the state can actually receive that. So on here, you'll get to see the federal deposits into the Crime Victims Fund account. So on here, you will be able to see that was an increase in the balance or the deposits, and then a very huge drop almost immediately. And then in 2021, they allowed for receipts from federal deferred prosecution and non-prosecution agreements to start going into the Crime Assistance Fund. Before that, they would just go back into the U.S. Treasury General Fund. And this was implemented as part of the 2021 fix. On here, we have the federal amount of the Crime Victims Fund. You'll also see the yellow, which is the cap, or the limit that is allowed to be awarded out or dispersed between the multiple agencies. So while at some points there were lots of balance in there, the cap allowed only a certain amount. So in 2022, while the cap was 2.6, they were only able to award out 1.5 because that was all that was available in the fund. So on this page, we give a little bit more in-depth detail. So on the top end, you get to see Indiana's VOCA federal allocation. So how much we are awarded. We get an award yearly from OVC to fund our VOCA program. And so in 2018, we did have a $67 million award. But we've seen a steady decrease. And in 2024, instead of it being in the 20s, we actually got 15 million. So then we also have our grant cycle amounts. So for our VOCA 2016 award, we actually awarded out 26 million, and then we've been able to kind of hold that so that there's been a minimal decrease in the funding available to our agencies that we award out. However, unfortunately, we only have 41 million available, which is the combination of our 2024 and our 2025 allocation. We do expect there to be a little bit more because we will be utilizing unspent funds from our agencies for 2023. So we'll be able to put a little bit more into that, but we won't be able to meet that 65 or $80 million that we've previously awarded out. Here within the VOCA fix, so you'll notice that we were able to use our 2018 award for multiple of our grant cycles. We can thank the VOCA fix for that. The VOCA fix allowed for no cost federal extensions that we could apply for. So we were able to utilize that. And a little bit about what we're doing. So we've applied for no cost federal extensions, and we're utilizing 4 years of our funding on our current VOCA cycle, so our VOCA 2024. So some of those funds do expire, and we've utilized as much as we can. We do, with our VOCA grant cycle, we make that a 2-year grant cycle because we have a lot of agencies who apply for it. And it is very cumbersome to apply for applications, but we do keep them as 2 separate award amounts. So while it's a 2-year program, they have a year 1 and then they have a year 2. Anything from their year 1, the obligation or unspent funds, we typically will try to utilize for their 2nd year, so long as those funds have not expired at that time. And what we do is we also forecast the amount of our admin funds that we're going to utilize. So out of our federal award amount, we are able to allocate 5% towards admin. So that helps to pay for some of our salaries and to manage the awards. And we reallocate some of that back to our subgrantees when needed. And then we are utilizing our oldest funds first. So if we notice that we have more funds in 1 year, we will reallocate that to the previous year so that we are utilizing our oldest funds first. The other things that we have done is we've met with our large entity stakeholders to prep them, to have them talk to their constituents to make sure that they are stressing the importance of VOCA funds actually decreasing and what that means. So we're actually asking them to prepare our agencies, ask them to self-budget or self-reduce their budget so that they are still providing those much needed services across the state of Indiana.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, Mark.
In terms of the federal deposits, sizable decrease. And I realize this is not an Indiana or CGI issue to address. And you may have said it and I just didn't quite catch it. And for that, I apologize. Receipts from criminal fines and penalties, gifts, donations, and bequests from private citizens. The biggest drop is in fines and penalties, in private gifts and donations, or is it kind of six one, half dozen the other?
It's a combination of both. So some of the things that, it really depends on what the prior administration or the current administration, and the judges want to, if they want to charge or have a final penalty towards that case. Sometimes there are, sometimes there aren't. So if there aren't, then there's no funds going into the balance or the deposit. And then if there are, there's a portion that goes into it.
Yeah, I know, but certainly in the federal system and most criminal justice systems, if there's money a defendant has, the preference is that it go in restitution to victims.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you'll see a nominal fine or no fine at all because the defendant just doesn't have enough to pay, to make restitution a possibility. To impose a $10,000 fine makes no sense at all because you're taking it, putting it in the treasury rather than in the pocket of victims. So I was just curious if it seems to be really smaller fines and penalties that become available as opposed to private gifts and donations, but which would have been my guess. So.
And what I've read, it's also the large settlements have not necessarily been being settled. And that's where a significant amount of that drop is the, think of like the Enrons, the settlements that we've all heard of, that have either been voided or just the prosecution stuff in those cases.
So you got any other comments for another time, another place?
I think the other thing that Professor Stewin mentioned was the $1 million that we're holding back in reserve to, this is really about timing. How do we shift some of our agencies who have relied on VOCA funds? How do we shift them to state dollars, but also shift them to state dollars on a time frame that they're used to receiving these dollars? And so I think this is something we'll probably have to look at more as we move forward in sort of what are the activities that our grantees are doing? Are they used to receiving these dollars? And is this the best funding stream for that activity to happen? And we'll need to do some shifting over time, but that will take a lot of time as we want to make sure that we're not creating funding gaps while we try to right size, for instance.
Yeah, and if I may, I mean, I would note, I well recall when we had millions and millions and millions of dollars to allocate, and it was frustrating because of like, there's too much money, and I appreciate, but what this illustrates to me is that the dedication and hard work of CGI in general, but in particular its staff, to mine these pennies, if you will, because even though we talk about millions, it in a sense comes down to nickels and dimes and figuring out where it should go. And I think we are remiss in not thanking CGI staff in particular for its hard work and attention to these incredible challenges. Mind-boggling at times.
Yeah, thank you. I'll also point out, I think that what staff has pointed out multiple times is, we don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. And that largely goes back to a 40% reduction for across the board would be detrimental to, frankly, a lot of our rural communities. And so looking at each award as we move through this process is important to ensure that there is enough funding to ensure that services are being provided across the state. Yes.
Thinking that there's also a program, and maybe it's not funded by the voter funds, for individual victims of crimes to get reimbursed for whatever funeral expenses. What is that? Is that a different funding source?
So it's still VOCA, but it's our VOCA compensation fund. So we're VOCA victim assistance. So that's a different division within our department.
So Nolan, raise your hand. Nolan runs our sexual assault, fund and our violent crimes fund. And so victims of violent crimes can apply. There's a process, an application process, they go through. And his team managed that.
Is it the choice of ICJI when they get the local funds, how much we put in victims assistance and how much we put in, no?
No, so actually the amount of money that we put towards sexual assault, then is tied to the amount of funding that we receive for, violent crimes. So VOCA is not tied to this. And so that's a balance because if we don't put enough money into sexual assault, then we don't get as much money for violent crimes. And so we've got to balance that.
All to Professor Stuan's comment of how nuanced this is for staff to manage, so kudos to all of you.
I will also say, in the, where I mentioned the deposits or the carve outs, the victims compensation fund gets a separate award from VOCA. And then victims assistance is there, so that's one of the many carve outs or additional, deposits that are funded out of it.
Any further questions? Okay. So as a follow-up to our September meeting, I asked Ellen Sheets, the Director of Youth Services, to provide an update on the work that her division is doing to improve our juvenile justice grants. Ellen?
So back in 2023, we were allocated from the legislators to have 40 million in behavioral health grant funds, 10 million in diversion and 10 million in alternatives. So when Doug came in, we were talking about, we have so much money left. We've not been able to award out what we would have liked to have done. We have pretty much almost 28 million left for behavioral health, almost a little more than 6 million for diversion, and almost 8 million for alternatives. The diversion and the alternatives have the funding formula, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and the behavioral health does not have the funding formula. So when we're looking at why are we not getting this money out the door, we have concerns that have been expressed by sub-grantees. So we reviewed their concerns. We've done an internal assessment to see what do we need to do to make this an easier process for everyone. So in addition to reviewing our processes, Doug was an advocate for looking at the funding formula and what we need to do. Is there an issue with the funding formula? So we worked with the YJOC's, the Youth Justice Oversight Committee's grants work group and discussed funding formula options. We had 2 or 3 options for them. We all talked about it, and it was brought before the YJOC at the next meeting. And so we have changed the funding formula. We are going to have our first round of these new processes in January. The funding formula is going to change for the small counties. Right now, currently the small counties, all the counties got $75,000 as a base, and then depending on the size of the county, there's additional funds added. So for a large county over 50,000 people, they got 25,000. No, they got 5,000 more. Then a county that was mid-sized got 10,000 more, and then a small county actually got 15,000 more, because the whole premise of the funds were to provide services to counties or communities that don't have a lot of resources. So, we wanted to highlight that. So in revising the funding formula, we looked at how do we help the smaller communities? What do we need to do? So we decided to change their amount to $150,000 that would be available per county of the small counties, and then we're leaving the medium and large the same. After we, as we were doing that, we also met with, different state agencies that have grants to find out what their grant processes are. Because one of the complaints that we've had, as long as I've been here, is the, application, is pretty cumbersome. And there's a lot of repeat questions, so we wanted to look at that. So we wanted to find out how, other agencies did theirs. We worked with, DOC on how they do the JDAI funds. And then we also worked with DMHA on how they handle their funds. We had a small focus group with some of our subgrantees to kind of talk with current subgrantees to talk about our process and a couple of our areas that we were working on at the time. We had some individual calls. We have, as we've gone along and looked at some changes, we have also gone back to the Youth Justice Oversight Committee's grants work group to discuss. What we're doing is we created a new application. Our new application is going to, there's not the duplicative questions that there are in our in the IntelliGrants applications. We have, in addition to the new application, we're creating a new request for funding template for all three of our funds. We've revised our program reports. We are also looking at new grant agreements in addition to our two new processes. So our program report, the program report questions came from the YGOC, or the grants work group. What we found, as we put together annual reports, is that this data that we're getting is inconsistent. There wasn't a lot of instruction or guidance to our subgrantees. We have some subgrantees that were putting cumulative data in their reports. We have some that were doing just the report period. So when it comes to looking at our overall numbers, we had problems with, kind of consistency there. So we are revising our program report template. And we're going to have all of our subgrantees that have current open grants start this new report in 2026. So we'll be doing some training with them. We'll also at the time, let them know the changes to our whole process of application and, how we're going to be changing our grant process in general, so that when they apply again, they understand that this is going to look much different. We intend to have an application period in January. And our plan is to bring that to the June board. We won't be bringing it to the March board. We'll be bringing it to June. We have, our hope is that we will get a lot of subgrantees. Our hope is to, or applicants, our hope is to use all of these funds by the end, or at least allocate all of these funds by the end of 2026, so that we can ask for additional funds in 2027. It's going to be a tall task because we have a lot of money left, but we have a lot of individuals assisting us in getting the word out. We are to the point where we almost have our request for fundings ready. Will be our application is, maybe besides a couple of tweaks, is ready as well. So we're wanting to get that information out to potential applicants. I believe that the YGOC is going to assist us with this. We're going to ask the courts, court services to assist us so that we can get this information out. It's going to be pretty clear as to what we're wanting in our applications, so that when the application does come out, there's no surprises. what we're doing right now is we're finalizing our processes, finalizing the application, our request for proposals, and we'll be working with John on our grant agreements. We are planning to schedule several trainings. We'll be having a training I mentioned before with our current sub-grantees on this new program report. And then once the request for funding comes out, we'll be having a training like we always do. When a new request for funding comes out, we do a training to allow them to ask questions, but this is going to be even more important because the process is going to be different. We're still going to use IntelliGrants more as a holding, a place to hold our documents. They'll apply in the Word document and attach it into IntelliGrants. So there's going to be the process of teaching our applicants that, you know, what we need them to do to apply, in addition to what the funds are for. We're going to be updating the youth section of the CGI website to include all of the information on our new processes, our new forms, etc. And again, conducting outreach to make sure that we're reaching small communities, that we're able to answer questions if they happen. And once the application comes out live, we're kind of limited on what we can actually talk about the applications, but we're hoping that the outreach will allow potential interested parties to reach out to us. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Ellen. How long will the application be open?
We are looking at 6 to 7 weeks.
Thank you. And just to be clear, is there a funding cap on the behavioral health?
There is not a funding
Okay.
for behavioral health, just the diversion and alternatives.
Any questions for Ellen?
Is there any sense that the new program, the UNO program, is going to enter midstream?
No, I think I think if you look at the IntelliGrants and where we're headed with UNA, we have more options with UNA. We are able to do more of the customizations and more of the changes to modify things rather than now. We have a IT contractor that has to do a lot of that work. And so there's an additional cost for that. And the nice thing is when you are the first, your processes are the ones that are getting kind of solidified and put in place. So I think this will have an impact to some of our processes. I think it will make us take a hard look at and the processes that we have that feed into UNA. But I don't think it will change what we're doing in other areas. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you, Ellen. She and her team have been working really hard, and I'm really excited for the results. We'll be leaning on probably all of you to help get this information out to stakeholders and also help promote it within the communities that you serve.
Who are the primary stakeholders of these behavioral health funds?
So that would be local criminal justice systems. So whether that is judges, probation, or even all I can think of is jails, our juvenile detention facilities, yes. Those, but also then all of the people who do the work. So whether that's your behavioral health prevention people, groups, nonprofit groups that are running diversion programs within communities. We're, much like we've done with the work on opioid settlement, we don't really care where the leadership comes from or where these programs are being housed or who's applying for our funds. We just want the partners coming together, having a evidence-supported program and ensuring that they're all playing nice together. So, thanks. Anything else?
Yeah, thanks. Stepping back to Voc, I just had a question that came up. Do we know when the applicants will learn their number, like their award amount?
Sure. So we'll open the applications in February. And so that'll stay open approximately 4 to 6 weeks. Afterwards, then we'll start our review process, reading through all 200 applicants plus, making some final recommendations, going through all that, meeting with our subcommittee, our board. And so after the board meeting is when, we'll actually notify all of our agencies what they were awarded. And then what next steps are from there.
Which board meeting, the March? June.
Yeah. Yeah. Takes a while to go through 200 plus applications.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking of, recipients who might be on a county fiscal, and if the county needs to supplement, for some reason, that's kind of in my mind. So.
Yeah, so we've met with a lot of our larger stakeholders. We're also going to send out an email towards the end of this month for some of those agencies who don't fall into those large stakeholders to try to get those stakeholders, make sure everybody is aware of what is to come and to hopefully they can diversify their program. So if they are on a yearly calendar governmental fiscal year, then they can start working on that as well.
Thank you.
Well, thanks. So just finally, as we, end the year, I just want to provide the trustees with some 2026 organizational goals for the Institute. We've developed 4 high-level priorities that will guide our work through the next year, and these include reducing the administrative burden on our grantees and our stakeholders, improving internal operational efficiency, maximize our use of federal funds, that one's for you, Lori, and also increasing the Institute's engagement and leadership in coordinating the Indiana's criminal justice system. So I've asked our leadership team and our divisions to have these priorities cascade down through the organization for alignment in our individual performance goals for next year. And so I'm very much looking forward to the progress that we'll make in 2026. With that, I'd like to thank our presenters today and our trustees for your time. Our next meeting is Friday, March 6th. And if there's no other business to come before, yes, sir.
It says that meeting is at 10.
We will, is it at 10?
That's fine.
Shelby's,
I want to make sure it wasn't.
yes, Shelby is shaking her head, yes. In 2026, we are moving the meetings to 10 o'clock, to a 10 o'clock time frame. Yes. Any other business? Then we stand adjourned. Thank you.